Hello again. Most of us, when talk turns to saints, think of people like Francis of Assisi, or perhaps one of the Christian martyrs, men and women who gave their lives for the sake of Jesus. These people were some of them scholars, others were monks and nuns, but they were all deeply religious people who devoted their lives to the pursuit of goodness and to the worship of God. In the Catholic Church, the process of accepting individuals as being saints is a long and rigorous one. First, it must be established that they were very good people with a strong devotion to the Church. Such individuals who have been shown to possess what is known as heroic virtues are accepted into the process of saint-making, or canonization to give it the technical term. This means that they may be called after their death venerable. Once they are venerable, then people may pray for them to intercede on their behalf, and a miracle is then needed to allow them to progress to the next stage, which is beatification. This is probably quite enough for the average person to know about the process of canonization, but here is where things get very weird, assuming that none of what I have so far said strikes viewers as particularly weird. 2 years ago, Pope Francis granted a man called Robert Schuman the title of Venerable, which means that for the last few years people have been praying to Schuman, who died in 1963, for miracles, usually of healing for serious illnesses and so on. Who was Robert Schuman that men and women across the world should be addressing their prayers to him in search of miracles? Robert Schuman was born in Luxembourg in 1886 and was partly German and partly French. He was a lawyer who later became Prime Minister of France. Nothing very promising here for sainthood. How many Prime Ministers end up being canonised? Especially one who had been a minister in Petain's collaborationist government. Robert Schuman, though, redeemed himself after the end of the Second World War by being instrumental in setting up both NATO and also the Council of Europe. He was, in fact, one of the founding fathers of the European Union and is revered as such in some European circles. He was the first president of the European Parliament. That is roughly it. He was a very devout Catholic and read the Bible a lot, but then quite a few people do that. It is something of a mystery how he ended up on the road to sainthood, which is not at all common for politicians. There is something a bit fishy about the whole business, and I've exchanged communications with a priest who feels that there is something not quite right about the affair. The obvious explanation is that diplomatic pressure has somehow been brought to bear on the Vatican to ensure that the European Union gets a boost from having its very own saint. Just imagine, it's already permissible in the Catholic Church to address your prayers to one of the architects of the European Union. How cool is that? I give a link to a bit about this in the description to this video, and the thumbnail shows Robert Schuman himself. I've read up on the fellow in search of some clues about his heroic virtues, but nothing shows up. For instance, some people during the occupation of Europe by the Nazis sheltered Jews, which I will be the first to recognise as an act of heroic virtue. Others, like Robert Schuman, were ministers in a pro-Nazi government whose Prime Minister was shot for treason after the war. I can only assume that he is being canonised solely because he helped set up NATO and the common market, which does seem rather an odd reason to declare a man a saint.